everyone. I'm gonna go over the basics of stretching. So I'm gonna get right to the bullet points because I know my patients are gonna wanna use this as a reference. And then we'll talk about some of the theoreticals and why at the end. So 5 basics. You wanna make sure that your body is warm. Don't do this on a cold body. We wanna make sure that you're calm. We wanna make sure you have perfect form. You wanna make sure that you find a productive space in terms of how hard you stretch. You don't want it to be too intense. You don't want it to be too weak. You want to find something that's productive and challenging, but not too much. And you also want to not do reps, but hold the stretch in perfect form and just hang out and breathe. That's when stretches will be most effective. So let me go through some of these bullet points a little bit. Being warm, basically you don't want to just jump out of bed and start stretching. You want a chance for your blood to start moving, maybe go for a light walk, do some activities in the house. If you're doing it in the evening and you're stiff or sore from sitting at your desk or being out in the cold, take a hot shower. You want to make sure that your tissue is warmed up. Okay, very important. That avoids tearing muscles. It also gives you a better connection with your body so that you don't overdo. Okay, so number 2, being calm. It's really important you don't have like the dogs, maybe you can have the dogs, I don't know, but like running through and interrupting you, or, you know, if you have children, kids running in, or the telephone ringing, you know, put your cell phone aside so that you have time and space to connect to your body. It'll make your stretches more productive, and it'll also avoid injury. Okay, create a little space for yourself. You're worth it. It's really important with health habits to carve out time. I always am talking to people about their self-care routine. It's important that you have something you do daily, and then something maybe you have a little bit more program that you do on weekends or when you have more time, but it's important to increment that. Okay, perfect form, very important. This is the entire reason why I do these videos, because there's points that if you do it one way, you can do it and say, oh, it's so easy and I don't really feel it. But if you just put a little attention and angle your back a certain way, now I feel it. So really pay attention to the points in these videos. It'll lead you to getting great results by using perfect form. It'll also avoid you hurting yourself. Productive space. Make sure, I always tell people there's a range in a stretch. When it's too intense, this is not a place where pain equals gain, okay? And then too light, where you're not really challenging yourself and getting the benefit. You wanna find that sweet spot for yourself and make sure you respect it. So tune into your body. I recommend for people who are taking a lot of pain medications, be really careful, because some of the feedback mechanisms your body would normally give you as a warning to make sure you're not stretching too much with pain might be removed. So really, really tune into your body, find that productive sweet spot. And lastly, people are always asking me, how many times do I do this? And I tell them, don't. No reps, people. Get perfect form, spend the time getting to that productive space. It doesn't make sense to fall right back out of it. Stay in that space, breathe. As you breathe, you can feel the muscle giving a little more, so you can gently intensify the stretch. The purpose is to hang out there, and I tell people a good benchmark is between 30 and 60 seconds, but you can hang out less if it's too challenging and build up, and a little longer if you're getting better at the stretch, okay? Those will really help in terms of the how. Okay, moving on to the when, daily practice. You know, people often say to me, well, I did it a couple times. You know, honestly, these are long-term patterns, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, that have established themselves, or I would not be prescribing this. The things I prescribe are not sort of a get fit program. These are specific to spinal health. So really make sure if you're doing them daily, you're giving your body a chance to change significantly over time. And that's really what we're after. We're not after a quick fix. We're after something that is consistent. The body responds very well to gradual and consistent change, okay? So daily. Why? So muscles are pulleys, and if you're my patient, you'll know I say this all the time, muscles are pulleys. Let me explain. So like, for example, in my arm, if I'm gonna flex my arm here, I have a muscle here that contracts, and if I extend, I have a muscle here that also contracts. However, in order to flex my arm, this one has to contract, and this muscle, we call that reciprocal, the reciprocal muscle has to relax. So your body is really smart, and it's always looking to protect itself and conserve energy. So your brain controls the nerve supply to these muscles. And even though you can voluntarily contract, Just like if you're doing a stretch and you go, oh, it's really, really hard, that's a sign that it's a good thing for you to work on. What happens is if we have a pattern in the body where through either spinal problems or posture problems over time, maybe somebody who like sleeps face down or sits hunched playing video games, not mentioning any names, but you know who you are. But also repetitive motions. For example, somebody who sits at their desk, or even for activities like sports. Some sports will create hypertensive or overly contracted muscles when even at rest. So what happens in that scenario, when you have a hyper-tight muscle, the brain will down-regulate, and what that means is turn down the power going to the opposing muscle in order to protect itself, take pressure off the joints, and conserve energy. So then what you have is a cycle that gets worse over time. Stretches are necessary because in order to affect change, if we want to undo that posture, if we want to undo that cycle, we have to first stretch the tight muscle. That process I talked about it's called reciprocal inhibition. We have to stretch this so that the power will return to this muscle. I can't strengthen my triceps really effectively and the best I can until I stretch my biceps. So if that makes sense to you, you want to do your stretches diligently following the tips I've given you. Okay, let's stretch, everybody.